Welcome to you, and welcome to my guest, King Lear. King Lear, that is, as portrayed by the actor John Lithgow, who grew the beard for the role and has been frightening our neighbors here in New York City merely by walking down the street at twilight's last gleaming, headed to Central Park, where under the stars he storms and stalks and strides the stage as Shakespeare's aging, raging old tyrant, descending into dementia, at war with time, his daughters, and himself. There is no more difficult role in the theater and no play more relevant to the moment anytime and anywhere it's performed. With all the carnage and violence around us in the world, King Lear mirrors the folly of reckless leadership, the arrogance of power, and the depth of human anguish.
Blow winds and crack your cheeks, rage, blow you cataracts and hurricanos. Spout till you have drenched our steeples, drowned the cocks, you sulphurous and thought-executing fires. Vaunt couriers to oak-cleaving thunderbolts, singe this white head!
The artistic director of New York's Public Theater, Oscar Eustis, says the current revival of interest in Lear comes perhaps because the possibility of genuine chaos, real cannibalizing barbarism, is closer to the surface than we can possibly imagine. And he asks, could the popularity of Lear be the high culture analog to the popularity of Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead on television? I'll put that question to King Lear himself, my friend and neighbor John Lithgow. He's a constant and notable presence on stage, television, and in the movies. A two-time Oscar nominee, multiple Tony and Emmy winner, the author of books for kids, a memoir about acting, and editor of a collection of poetry. His delightful and moving new film, Love is Strange, opens August 22nd. John, welcome.
Thank you, Bill.
Looking every inch the king.
Yes, I have my King Lear beard for you today.
So what do you think? Why is there such interest again in him? Is he our contemporary?
I think you're quite right. I find the process of reading the front page of the New York Times every day deeply unsettling. I've almost stopped doing it. It's so upsetting. And I get on stage and speak those lines. I mean, to me, the most pointed line in the whole play is, I've taken too little care of this. You know, we live fairly comfortable lives, and every day you're reminded of the astonishing misery in the rest of the world.
Are you aware that you, Lear, are speaking to our times?
It speaks to all times. I mean, it's a play about big elemental things. Growing old, losing your viability, losing your mind, terrible disruptions and dysfunction between family members, bringing down devastation on your own life by your own folly and your own bad mistakes and your own vanity. These are all huge ideas, and they always resonate. They resonated for Shakespeare, which is why he wrote it. I don't think there is a play which is so nakedly painful. It's just, in his late scenes, when he says howl, imagine a line that is 4 words. Howl, 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 howl. There's never been such a gut-wrenching cry of anguish. Chaos has descended on this poor man and has spread out to his whole world. And it's almost a ritual that Shakespeare takes us through, showing us devastation and then restoring order and giving us hope. Otherwise it's just, you can't bear the hopelessness unless there is some sort of redemption.
Where do you find hope in Lear?
He has learned his own folly. He's regained his love for his daughter, Cordelia,
whom he had disinherited early in the first act.
And turned on her savagely for the most petulant and vain reasons. He's learned all about himself. Even as he's lost his mind, he's gained a sense of himself. That, I think, is the story that Shakespeare is telling. When we talk about Lear where it fits in our time, we are in a very strange moment. I look around and 50% of the big budget entertainment you're seeing these days is dystopian. This is the era of Hunger Games and blasted landscapes and Walking Dead. The zombie is the new sort of archetype of our times. Like the avatar of our time is a zombie. I mean, how horrific is that? And somehow or other we've internalized that, we've made that our entertainment. I think one thing that's drawing people to King Lear these days, Shakespeare is a great philosopher. He puts some sort of order lends some order to our chaotic thinking. And I think that's why everybody's flocking to Lear, as they have for 3 or 4 productions in the last year.
There are no seats at the performances.
No, you can't get in. It's very interesting. I mean, one thing, the most gratifying thing that everybody is telling us as they come back after seeing this show is they talk about the clarity of our production. They keep using the word, it's so clear. They say, I feel like I'm hearing those words for the first time. There is, I will tell you a wonderful sort of sausage-making story from rehearsal. There's a beautiful scene and speech by King Lear, which every actor loves because it's so beautiful and it's so kind of tremulous with sentiment. When Lear says to Cordelia, "No, let's away to prison. We two will sing like birds in a cage. When thou dost ask me blessing, I'll kneel down and ask of thee forgiveness. And so we'll live and pray and sing and tell old tales and laugh at gilded butterflies and hear poor rogues talk of court news. And we'll talk with them too, who loses and who wins, who's in, who's out, and take upon us the mystery of things as if we were God's spies." Now, every actor loves to speak that speech. And as rehearsals went by, I was doing it in my best Gilgoodian, plummy style. And Dan Sullivan, our fantastic director, he approached me as rehearsal began one morning and said, I was thinking about this scene last night. Lear is still crazy, And it was a transformative moment. The scene suddenly became very ironic, deeply painful. You saw Lear through Cordelia's eyes. She's lost him. And this is still, he's so relieved and happy to have her back again and to have her forgiveness. But he's still unmoored. So the speech is, no, let's away to prison. You and I, we two alone will sing like birds in the cage. When thou dost ask me blessing, I'll kneel down and ask of thee forgiveness. So we'll live and pray and sing and tell old tales. He's mad. It's mad to think you're going to have a beautiful, happy, forgiven life inside prison walls, alone with your daughter.
What's so interesting about that is that when you were growing up, your father directed Shakespearean festivals in Ohio, and you told me once that when you were a child, Shakespeare just washed over you like a warm bath. And yet here you are, having become this figure, one of the most egomaniacal, one of the most vengeful men in literature. It's hard for me to understand how you become something you really aren't.
Well, first of all, I feel very protective of King Lear. You've just talked very harshly about him. I'm very forgiving of him because I do believe, even as the play begins, he's already lost something. He's already in serious trouble. Age has happened to him. And my heart goes out to him. So I don't think of him as egomaniacal, tyrannical monster. He's a man with deep flaws, of course. But there again, and with Dan Sullivan's guidance, you do get a sense of what a beloved man he has been, what a big heart he has on his very first entrance. You see him as someone whom everybody loved, who just makes a horrendous mistake. He becomes victimized by his own vanity. I love that particular duality. I love any role in which a character turns out not to be what you expected him to be. To me, all the great drama comes from good people doing bad things and bad people doing good things. The contradictions in all of us. That beautiful line from Hamlet, I am myself indifferent, honest, and yet I could accuse me of such things that it were better my mother had never borne me. This is why Shakespeare is arguably the greatest playwright. Is he just had this perception of people that we are all flawed. There's goodness in all of us, and there's badness in all of us, and the intermingling, the conflict between those two is where drama comes in.
Yeah, I was watching that first act as a spectator, and then I suddenly became a father because when he does this senseless thing, he's jealous, and he thinks he's been insulted because Cordelia won't say how much she loves him.
What can you say to draw a third more opulent than your sisters? Speak.
Nothing, my lord.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Well, nothing will come of nothing.
And he
Yeah.
flits her when you wonder how many times have you as a father broken the heart of somebody who loves you but can't tell you.
Oh, I think parenthood is so complicated. I've made such mistakes as a parent. I have so many regrets, and I'm a good enough father.
Right.
But I mean, he makes two mistakes. He rejects Cordelia out of hand for being honest, and he embraces Goneril and Regan for being hypocritical.
His other two daughters, yeah.
Yeah, and he only discovers later that they haven't exactly lied to him. I want to be fair to them too, as in fact I think Shakespeare is. But he has entered that stage in his life when he's misperceiving things, and he has to go through. He has to go through this agonizing process of gaining self-knowledge.
The moment I always remember about King Lear is when the king is on the heath with Gloucester, and Gloucester's blind, and Lear says, nonetheless, you see the world. And Gloucester says, I see it feelingly.
And Lear says, what, art mad? A man may see how this world goes with no eyes. Look with thine ears. I could go on, of course, but I see it feelingly as another beautiful Shakespearean line.
And I wonder, why does it take the blind to see the truth?
Well, that's a wonderful theme running all through the play. There are many, many references to, early on in his first rage at Goneril, he says, old fond eyes beweep this cause again, I'll pluck ye out and cast you with the water that you lose to temper clay. If you listen carefully, you'll hear eyes and sight and seeing feelingly and needing no eyes to see the truth. That is, in a sense, Lear himself begins to see things in a way that has nothing to do with actual sight. It's perception.
Do you think he changes as a character through the story?
Oh, vastly. The interesting thing is, he becomes more and more out of touch. He becomes madder. You see someone gradually going mad, and his madness takes many forms. Early on, it's the madness of sheer anger, irrational anger. When he gets out onto that heath and he sees poor Tom, the naked beggar, in my mind, it's like an electric jolt. It sort of takes him into a new kind of madness when he says, why, thou wert better in thy grave than to answer with thy uncovered body this extremity of the skies. Is man no more than this? Consider him well. Thou owest the worm no silk, the beast no hide, the sheep no wool, the cat no perfume. Here's three on us are sophisticated. Thou art the thing itself. Unaccommodated man is no more but such a poor, bare, forked animal as thou art. And he immediately starts to rip off all of his clothes. Off, you lendings, come, unbutton here. That's another stage of his madness, at which point he thinks even the clothes we wear are a lie. We're covering something up with them. I'm going to be naked. I'm going to face nature as a natural man. I'm going to reject everything that smacks of deceit and hypocrisy. This is madness, but it's also perception. It's also a truth that he never had access to before. And that's the profundity of the play.
On your New York Times blog, which is a rich source of your own personal insight as well as to understandings of the play, I read this message you got from a fan in Denver. And he says, I wish you had quoted the ensuing lines, which remain so appallingly timely. Take physic, pomp, you do it, I can't.
Poor naked wretches, wheresoe'er you are, that bide the pelting of this pitiless storm. How shall your houseless heads and unfed sides, your looped and windowed raggedness, defend you from seasons such as these? I have ta'en too little care of this. Take physic, pomp. Expose thyself to feel what wretches feel, that thou mayest shake the superflux to them and show the heavens more just. And at just that moment, poor Tom emerges from the hovel, and Lear snaps. He goes a lot madder than he already is, and he begins to see the world with a kind of blinding clarity in madness. That is the moment where Lear suddenly feels the suffering of the poor. That's his moment of perceiving the horrors of inequality, to wrench us into a very contemporary debate. Lear suddenly sees the difference between a man and a beggar, a king and a beggar, and sees the injustice of that.
And isn't there a sense of awareness on his part that he's ruled this kingdom without really regard for those he could not see, or for whom he could not feel?
Precisely.
Which, to wrench it, as you say, into contemporary terms, often strikes me as the prevailing ethos of Washington. I don't want to be political at this. So, but your fan in Denver gets it. He says, from the Rio Grande to Detroit, and from Gaza to the Ganges, lines to ponder just now.
Yeah.
He gets it.
He gets it. And I feel very lucky to be in a play that is provoking that kind of a response.
There's this very lively discussion going on in London as we speak about whether Lear is the embodiment of age-related dementia, the very phenomenon that we moderns are struggling with in the 21st century, never before. The implications of long life, the shame, the embarrassment, the anger, helplessness. As you know, Alzheimer's is a wrecking ball. Now, this could be our inevitable instinct to read into Shakespeare what we want to see there as opposed to what he intended there. But there is this moment in the play when Lear cries out, who is it that can tell me who I am? Mm-hmm. And I remember that in my mother. I remember that in others, people we loved who made this passage. Does this come to you as you perform?
Oh, yes. I mean, all of us who've gone past the age of 60. We've seen our parents grow old, if we're lucky, if we haven't lost them young. And you see them lose capacities, and it's extraordinarily painful. I think Shakespeare's depiction of dementia in the very latest, one of his last scenes, when he recognizes Cordelia.
I fear I am not in my perfect mind. Methinks I should know you and know this man, yet I am doubtful, for I am mainly ignorant what place this is, and all my skills remembers not these garments, nor do I know where I did lodge last night. Do not laugh at me, for as I am a man, I think this lady to be my child Cordelia.
And so I am. I am.
Now that is an exquisite portrait of an old man struggling with dementia, thinking he knows his own daughter. I mean, what an amazing piece of playwriting 400 years ago. I mean, Shakespeare surely saw demented old men and women struggling to make sense of the world. And he just portrays it so accurately.
Do you fear the withering of your powers?
Of course. You try to learn this part.
No, thanks. There's a line I won't cross. But
no, it's you know, this is an interesting moment. I've just entered into that window where you can play Lear, when you're old enough to play him and you're young enough to play him, because you have to have the strength to play the part, and yet you have to have some sense of impending old age.
Were you circling Lear all these years?
I always thought about Lear because you're always asked, is there some role that you want to eventually play? And the only answer I ever had to that was King Lear, which is the obvious. It's kind of the big Mount Everest role. So I've thought about it, and it's, you know, you can't read those speeches without being enormously moved and just wanting to play that part. I've rarely been in a play where I've been so eager to get on to the next scene. One scene ends, and I think, yeah, now I get to do that. You know, it's great. I think the most sublime scene is that one that I quoted to you, of him recognizing Cordelia. I really can't think of another thing on stage which is as deeply moving as that, and it affects me every single night.
John, King Lear, thank you for being with me.
Such a pleasure, Bill, as always.
At our website, BillMoyers.com, John Lithgow on his new film, Love is Strange, and more of our conversation about Shakespeare and King Lear. That's at BillMoyers.com. I'll see you there, and I'll see you here next time.
Don't wait a week to get more Moyers. Visit BillMoyers.com for exclusive blogs, essays, and video features.